This episode is brought to you by the Your Next Chapter Business Club. It provides community, resources, coaching, and training for women in business. In fact, everything you need so you can confidently grow you and your business each and every month. The club is now open and I would love to welcome you in. You can find out more details at angelarasmus.com/club. Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Rasmus, and I'm so delighted that you're here. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Your Next Chapter podcast. This is Angela Rasmus, your host, and you have joined us in the current series, which is all about purpose, passion, and reinvention. Stories from women who have pivoted and really clearly walked into their next chapter. Sometimes it's a small pivot, sometimes it's a major one, and there's lots of stories in between. And today, our guest, Haffke, has a really interesting story to share with us. Carol's going to be talking to us about her transition from her old work into her new purpose and passion. And I'm really looking forward to diving down into the story behind this transformation. Carol, thank you so much for spending your time here with us today.
I've been looking forward to it. Thank you.
I'm so pleased to have you here. And just before we hit record, we were talking about the book that is a part of your journey, the book of In My Shoes, what it's really like to start a business. And I think that's a question that a lot of women who are standing on the edge of their next chapter would love to have answered. So let's hear about how this chapter began for you. How did you start this business and what were you doing before?
Well, for 23 years, I was working as first a journalist on newspapers in Queensland as well as overseas in Namibia and in Portugal. Then I moved into PR, which is quite a logical shift. And basically because papers were closing down at the time and there were more opportunities and more money in public relations. But then I never really quite settled there. I'd worked for various jobs in Australia. I did have an interesting 18 months working for the UN in Vietnam in public relations, and that was fascinating. But when I returned, I decided I needed another shift, and I went into fundraising, which again is quite a logical move. So journalism, PR, fundraising, and I was there for 10 years. And absolutely loved it. It was the first time I actually believed in what I was writing and speaking about. And representing a charity it just made my heart sing every day. I was so proud of both of the charities that I worked for, each for 5 years. But then what happened then, I got just one Sunday in November 2011, I had a little meltdown. So like all big changes, they're often born from drama. And I certainly had a dramatic Sunday where the evening before, I'd organised a major gala fundraising dinner. It was the fourth one. I always say I'm not an events organiser, and I sort of started this event and sort of didn't really know what I was doing, but made it up as I went along. And 4 years later, it was going well, but the night still wasn't as good as I expected. And for some reason, it really, really hit me. And the next morning, I just woke up in tears, which I've never done before. Woke up crying and thinking, what on earth? I thought it was just a mess, the whole event, and what am I going to do? And I don't want to do another one of these events, which, being a bit of a drama queen, I was thinking, well, if I don't want to do an event like this again, that means I can't work for the beautiful organisation I was working for. And I look back at journalism and PR, and those industries had sort of moved on from me. They'd changed quite significantly. And I really don't like going backwards either in life. And I thought, what am I going to do? And for 5 hours, I sobbed on the couch. And then suddenly it hit me. I don't know where from, because I'd never thought about it before in my life. But suddenly I thought, you know what? I'm going to open my own shoe shop, women's shoe shop, specialising in longer sizes. And 5 months later, I did.
Oh, I love that. That idea of just being so open to what could a new possibility be. You looked back, you looked sideways, but you were ready for something new. It's interesting how sometimes these ideas can seem to just drop in. I have to ask the question, did you love shoes before that point?
Well, no. Funnily enough, I hated them only because I couldn't find them in my size. Like most of my customers, I wear a size 12 shoe, and that's why I was convinced this business was a good idea, because I knew right then and there that in Brisbane, where I live, there was nowhere for me to find fabulous shoes that fit, let alone shoes that fit. That was the struggle. So, I'd had this struggle for decades. Since I was 14, I had a size 12 foot. And through all the milestones in life, trying to find the appropriate footwear. I used to joke that my outfit stopped at my ankles because I was not responsible for what was happening down beyond that. So I actually hated shoes in the sense that they caused me so much grief, and I could never find pretty ones. And then when I started sourcing, had this idea and started sourcing shoes, I realised there are so many gorgeous shoes out there. And now, yes, I have an amazing collection of shoes.
I love that. This is a story with a happy ending, and all sorts of things are coming into my head. If the shoe fits, wear it, etc., etc. But that whole concept of, and so many businesses, so many next chapter businesses are built from that perspective, from a need, from something that you've experienced which was disconcerting or, not up to scratch or inspiring or whatever the case may be. But usually there's something that really connects and we go, I'm going to change this.
And that makes you such a passionate business owner, because you literally are exactly like your customers. I have the same conversation with customers, particularly new ones, nearly every day about, oh gosh, do you remember the shoes you had to wear to your school formal? Weren't they ugly? And had to wear men's shoes at school, and all the same conversations, everything that I had experienced, they have as well. So I think when you do have that niche business, you're one of them, and it makes it extremely easy to be empathetic, to understand where they're coming from. I mean, I know that back in the day, I used to find a pair of size 12 shoes. My goodness, I had to spend at least $250+, and that was about 20 or 25 years ago, which was a fair amount of money. So I know, for example, that when I can source shoes that are under $100, my customers love it. They buy 3 pairs, mind you, in 3 different colours because they're so excited, which kind of defeats the purpose of having a cheaper shoe. But at the same time, they love it that it's only $60 or $70, because I know they haven't experienced that very often. So you have that kinship and that relationship that I think is really precious in business.
I think you've just hit the absolute nail on the head. And the way that I look at that is that the depth of the empathy indicates the quality of the connection between you and the client. It's like that. I can't help this. I've walked a mile in your shoes. I understand.
It's another good one.
I'm going to slap myself soon. But I understand the pain that you've had, the frustration, what that experience is like. I really understand. I'm not just paying lip service to it. Your clients, your customers feel that. And that's where that connection comes from, which I would be right in thinking that the loyalty, the stickiness of your relationship would run quite deep.
Oh, it's beautiful. My customers are so incredibly gorgeous. I mean, I know a lot of people in retail say, oh, gosh, I had this, person in today and they were this and that. And sometimes you think business people, or particularly those in retail who deal a lot with the public, sometimes I wonder if they, have too much respect for their customers, the way they speak about them. And I find that horrifying, because I absolutely adore my customers, and we have a brilliant relationship because of that empathy, but also because I try and treat them, in the best possible way, and they come into my shop and there's no pressure to buy. I'm quite happy for them to try on as many shoes as they like, because I understand, particularly for the first timers, that it's such a treat. And my goodness, when a shoe's too big, Angela, oh my gosh, then it's so exciting, because it's like, no, I need a smaller size. And they usually say it very loudly if there's other people in the shop so that they can hear as well. No, I need a smaller size, please. So, there's lots of support from the customers, and they're very kind and very generous. Even, on my 6th birthday, which I celebrated in April, I was given little presents and flowers and beautiful cards, and it really was they really are very special, and I owe a lot to them, and the success of my business, obviously, to them.
Yeah, it's that camaraderie. And I actually was I was on a call just before our interview today, working with one of the clients that's in one of my masterminds on the personal mentoring calls that they have. And we were talking about the difference between acquisition activities and retention activities, and how often that we forget to take care of the clients we already have. I'm not meaning you or I, of course, but out in the marketplace, for example, magazine subscriptions. There's always lovely things on offer for someone to actually begin to subscribe. But once you're a subscriber, it's like, oh, well, you're just there. We won't worry about you. We won't reinforce or underpin the value that we see as you as a client. What you've done is you've built up such camaraderie and such after-sales service that connection is very strong. So you're actually creating, ambassadors and people who'd be happy to refer and talk about what you do to other people. They'd feel like, oh, doing you a favor in terms of as a potential client. I've found the solution for you. You have to go and see Carol.
That's right. One of the funniest stories about that, Angela, is one of my beautiful regulars was telling me she has a stash of my cards, and whenever she sees women with longer feet, she'll go up to them and it's quite boldly says, "Excuse me, can I just ask what size shoe do you wear?" And she once did this in the middle of the Queen Street Mall and asked this lady, and I think she was a size 12, and she said, "Oh my God, you have to go to the shoe garden." And this lady was, "Yeah, I know Carol really well. I go there all the time." She managed to find another customer in Queen Street Mall to give my card to, which was quite funny. And then they both had a really good chat about, their past experiences in trying to find shoes and now how it's so much easier since they found the shoe garden, etc. So, yeah, ambassadors is a great word, and that's how I see my customers. And, when you provide good service, when you smile, when you're happy, when you show how much you're proud of your business, then they become proud of you and your business as well. It's really quite special, and particularly because I'm largely a one-woman show with my little sidekick, my 14-and-a-half-year-old Maltese called Cece, who sits on my desk and greets customers. Together, we try very hard to remember everyone's name and make them feel welcome. And I think that personal connection really is incredibly special.
It is, for sure. And in fact, that leads me to another point that you had talked about when you wanted to become a guest on the podcast, and that's the deliberately small strategy. There's so much talk often, and I think we're almost sort of guilted into this. We must, inverted commas, want to build a massive business. Of course we do. That's like bigger is better, isn't it? And I spoke about that. I ran a masterclass about business confidence today, and I quoted the one slap basically from the Lorax from Dr. Seuss. And, we had the small factory, but we have to make it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And sometimes we can fall into that trap of believing that it's important to grow beyond perhaps even what our vision or our desires are. And I'm a proponent of deciding what role would this business play in your life? What are the financial goals you have for it? Absolutely. But there's many other aspects of business that need to be considered when you're goal setting. So talk to us about this perspective that we seem to share about being deliberately, consciously small.
I love the term small giant.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, small giant, where you want to be great instead of big. And that basically sums it up. I would like to channel all my energy into being the best shoe shop and the best business and the best place to visit for my customers that I possibly can be, rather than the biggest. And you're right, there's so much pressure to expand. I think I'd only been in business 2 months when someone asked me if I was going to open a shop on the other side of Brisbane. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's literally been 2 months and I've never done any of this before. I'm making it up as I go along, and I've been very open about that with my customers. So no, I'm not going to just yet. And now I sort of felt guilty every time people would ask me that, quite regularly for the first few years elsewhere in Queensland or interstate. And I used to feel guilty saying, oh, no, I think, I just want to focus on my one shop, my one business here, my one storefront, and having the online opens it up further, but still just the one shop front. And then one day I thought, you know what, this is actually what I want. It was a very conscious decision, I think. And it's reflected in my previous career as well. When I was a journalist, I loved being a journalist. And then I became a deputy editor and an editor of newspapers overseas. And all of a sudden, while it was fabulous and climbing up that ladder and having those titles, I missed out on writing the stories. And then when I was in PR, I started as a PR officer and then ended up as a PR manager, and I missed out on pitching stories and liaising with journalists, etc. And again, with fundraising, started off as the fundraising officer and ended up the fundraising manager, and missed the hands-on approach, because with all those so-called, more senior titles, I was forced to stop doing what I loved and start just purely from a management perspective, managing staff, going to endless meetings, writing strategies, writing business plans, and really missing what I love to do. And so taking that into my new life now, if I were to open a second or a third or a fourth shoe garden elsewhere in the state or the country, I'd miss out on so much. I love going to work every day. I love popping CC on my desk and meeting the customers and listening to them, because that's how I've learned to be a better business. I'm listening to what they want, what they're looking for. There's so many things I've learned from my customers, and you can't do that if you're out the back or you're in a driving between shops. And perhaps it's also a little bit of a control freak, in that I now have this opportunity where I can present myself as me. In all my other jobs as a journalist, I was always the impartial, trying to present two sides of the story, and at least that's what we did in the olden days. And in PR, I was sorry, couldn't help that joke. In PR, I sort of, and likewise in fundraising, I was representing my organisation and my CEO and being their voice and face. And so the shoe garden, it's the first time in my entire career I've been able to be me, and so I'm just reveling in that. And to my mind, I've got so many dreams and so much ambition for the shop, but it's singular, not plural.
I love that clarity that you have, and this is, I think, one of the incredible benefits of becoming older and wiser, is that we become,
yes, indeed,
our self-awareness really begins to dial up. We can begin to let go of that. How is it going to be interpreted? What are people going to think? We can start to detach from that and start to think about, well, what do I really want? And I loved your analysis there of recognizing that what you're best at and the things that you enjoyed the most, you started to lose those as you went up the totem pole, so to speak. But now in your own enterprise, you get to call the shots. And I think how you said you felt some guilt at first when people are saying, so, when's the chain store going to start around Australia? And we almost have to apologise sometimes for not seeming ambitious enough. But I think it's so important for us to get clear, and this is what I encourage everyone who is stepping into a next chapter business, is to be clear, as I was saying before, what role does this business play in my life? And how do I want to play in this business? It's a little similar to my experience when I had my marketing agency. When it started at the dining room table, me, a laptop and a business card, and I was working directly with clients. We'd be sitting there and brainstorming together and strategizing and sharing all of those moments and thoughts. But as I grew the business and ended up buying an office and having full-time staff, and I moved into, the managerial role. I still ran marketing workshops. I wasn't going to get that taken away, because I love that visioning part and the ideas and the strategizing. But I was managing so much stuff as opposed to being right at the coalface with the entrepreneur, with the business owner, and I missed that dreadfully.
Yeah.
And so that's what I love about the way I'm working today. I made that change back in 2012. I started this new way of approaching the market, very much defined by what I know I'm best at and what I enjoy the most. Because don't you think we do our best work when we're enjoying ourselves?
Oh, absolutely. And, I sometimes when I'm catching up with friends or even just overhearing people as I'm walking in the park, and this morning I was listening to two women, and they were just going on about so-and-so at work and all of this. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I'm free of all that I don't have to worry about colleagues or staff. They were a big part of what was stressing me out when I realised I wanted to open a shoe shop. That it wasn't just the gala fundraising dinner that pushed me over the edge. I realised in hindsight that, it was the year prior to that as well, and all the things that had been happening, a lot of challenges, a lot of changes, in my opinion, not for the better. And having been sort of stuck in that glue of all of that sort of negativity as well. So to branch out on my own and to be in control and to decide how I project myself and my business, I think is incredibly precious. And yes, being happy and, being happy to go to work every day is just glorious. It's a fantastic feeling.
Yeah, for sure. That delight in our voices hopefully is evidence of what is possible when you're true to what works for you. I think that there's another aspect to your business that I think also underpins and cements this feeling of being on purpose, having reinvented yourself, having meaning in what it is that you do. Not only are you fulfilling the needs of those women who really need your service, but there's a very big give back component to your business as well, isn't there?
There is, and that was one thing I was incredibly clear on. I had no idea how to set up a business, a shoe shop, how to buy shoes, nothing. But one thing I did know is that if I was going to do this, that it was going to be a term that I'd heard a while earlier. It was going to be a not just for profit. And I really wanted my business to be giving back. Having spent 10 years in fundraising, having watched other businesses, how they gave back. And sometimes I felt, sadly, it was more about them than it was about, the support that they were giving, that they were so demanding of one's time as in fundraising and so needy almost that I thought, wow, I'd just like to give back with no strings attached. I would like to do it as part of my business each and every day. It took me 3 years to set up. I wanted those 3 years to consolidate my business first, to make sure that I knew what I was doing, that I went through all the, quite a few learnings in that period. And then I spent about a year looking actually for a charity to support. I lived and worked and travelled a lot in Africa, and I really wanted to support something that was happening in Africa. And given my client base and given my own belief in the absolute power and amazingness of women, I wanted it to be focused on women as well. So after about a year, I found this amazing charity called Microloan Foundation Australia that gives small loans to women in Malawi in southern Africa. And I just thought, wow, that's such great synergy from myself, who's just starting out in business, to help other women start and grow their own businesses as well.
Oh, that's a beautiful parallel. And what I love here is how the values that are a part of who you are now built into the framework and the core of your business. So there's that beautiful parallel between the two of them. So that feels really solid.
Yeah, I really wanted it to be embedded rock solid, as you say, into my business. From day one, I pledged that every time I made a sale, be it in the shop or online, a portion of money, and that ranges from 25 cents to $5, will be donated by me to Microloan Foundation Australia. So I tied it deliberately to my sales so it would be sustainable. I didn't just want to come up with a different donation amount, every month. I thought if I tie it with my sales, it's embedded. It's part of the DNA of my business. It's an expense that is just as important as rent and electricity and wages, etc. And what it means is that, when I have really good months, the donation is higher. When things are a bit slower, often in the winter season here in Queensland, then it can be a bit lower. But regardless, every month there's money going to the charity. And as someone who used to work for charity, I also know how important that steady, regular income is for the charity.
Yeah, that consistency.
So sometimes it used to be so scary wondering, when the next donation was coming from and when and how much. But to know that, a reasonably high amount of money is coming in every month steadily, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, I know has been appreciated by the charity itself. And of course, my customers absolutely love it. They love the idea that every time they buy a pair of shoes, and if it's one or if it's, the record is 14, by the way, 14 pairs of shoes. If it's 1 or 14, that from every pair, a donation is made to help some amazing women. And, we all know that if you support women, you support the entire community, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the idea that it doesn't matter where we start from. If we build that giving component into our businesses, we can have such an impact. And I know, looking at what you'd shared with me before we talked, you've raised over $25,000
I know, it's incredible, isn't it?
It's phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal.
I can't believe how high it's gone so quickly, because it's just over 3 years. I have to say that just over 18,000 of that is directly from me, from sales, and the balance is through a program I call Shop Share Care, and it's through everyone I know, be it my beautiful customers, my family, friends, peers, suppliers, either donating or doing events and donating the proceeds. So that's fabulous. Just the other day, I had a lovely customer have a balance of $15, and she said, "Can you please donate it to Microloan Foundation Australia?" So I said, "Yep, done deal." The other day, a few weeks ago, I had an event at the shop, and a local caterer catered and created some amazing food for us. And when I went to pay the bill, he said, "Can you please make a donation instead to Microloan Foundation Australia?" So, which at that point I promptly burst into tears because I was so overwhelmed and grateful. And so, it's I think you just by that consistent support, you're also introducing other people to the idea, and they just love being involved in it as well, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, that tells me that what you've done is that you have created a culture within your business. I mean, we talk about in big business, what is the corporate culture, but you've created what did we call it? A small giant?
A small giant, absolutely.
That's it. You've created a small giant culture.
And one that believes in giving back and making a profit, for sure. I want to be a successful business. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But at the same time, I think, 25 cents here, $5 there, anything in between, that does add up clearly. And it can make a huge difference. The average loan that these women get is about $50. They pay that back over the course of 3 months or 4 months, and then it's loaned to the next woman. So that one loan just keeps having incredible impact every term, every time they pay it back. So it's such a practical way to support women as well. And back in December 2014, my mum and I were very lucky to visit and to meet some of these women, and that was just wow, it was a life-changing experience. It was really incredibly special. And I'm so happy every time the customer asks me about the charity. I have a photo of Mum I and the women up on the wall, and I love it when they ask me about it, because then I get a chance to reflect on that visit and the wonderful women we met. And, Dorothy, who was the leader of the group, told me that with the loan that she was given, and she's had a series of loans, she's been able to expand her little humble grocery stall into something not so humble, in fact quite impressive, and now she's considered very successful in the community. And she told me, and I had to contain my excitement, because I was so happy when she said these words. She said, "Once upon a time I used to have to beg my husband for money. Now he comes to me."
Oh, there's
fantastic. So I still get goosebumps when I think of that. I just think, wow, she's really changed her life around, and how fabulous is that?
She has, and I can feel when you're talking about that, how perhaps it's not quite the right word, but how proud you feel of the decision, of the choice that you made, and to be able to actually see the impact that choice is having on so many women.
Yeah, honestly, I think it is the right word, actually. I do feel proud, and I feel proud of all my customers for embracing it, and proud to be a small business that does give back, and that I guess wants to continue to be small, continue to give back, and that's my definition of success. Others might have quantities of stores and multi-million-dollar turnovers, and that might be their definition of business success. But I think, as you say, when you get older, your definitions and your opinions change somewhat. And for me, I'm no interest in building an empire. My little shoe garden, my little shop that supports these women, that's just perfect for me.
And that is the core part. Again, you've just hit the nail on the head. It's that success is defined by you. Nobody else is entitled to define what your success should look like. Yeah, no shoulds. There's no one's allowed to should all over you. This is completely your definition. And certainly I've noticed, again, as we become older and wiser, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen when we're younger, but it becomes a higher priority, that desire for contribution, And that contribution looks different for every person, but there is that pull towards wanting to contribute in a certain way. And again, that's something that you as an individual need to define, but those two pieces are right at the heart of a next chapter business. So let's talk about this whole idea of like, you've given us some great insights onto the passion and the connection that you have with your business, and that beautifully small but mighty version of it. But what happened when you were setting up? You know, I'm sure there's some lessons you've learned, and shall we even say mistakes perhaps that happened that you went, oh my goodness, I better share these. I might shorten and sweeten the journey for another.
Absolutely. There were both lessons and many, many, many mistakes. But I think overall in this journey, I've always tried very, very hard to be open-minded, to be positive, and to be, I know this sounds really corny, but just to be a nice person when you're dealing with other business people and when you're dealing in general. I think I never walked in thinking, trying to fake it till you make it. I just was very honest about my lack of knowledge, but I was also very open and very curious. And I guess, thinking about it now, being a former journalist was very helpful because I'm very good at asking questions. And I asked a lot of questions at the beginning, and still do. But certainly it was very intense from the moment I made the decision to the moment I opened the shoe garden. It was 5 months, and in that time I put my townhouse on the market so I could invest my own money in the business. I didn't want the angst and stress of a loan sort of hanging over the top of me. I remember I said to the real estate agent I wanted to please sell to an investor, and she sort of raised an eyebrow, and I said, can I please write the copy? And so I did, and 3 weeks later I sold to an investor. So I'm still in my home. So I lost my house but not my home, as I say. And then I used that money to invest in my business. And I think I left work, it was the 31st of January, and then I opened on the 14th of April. So those few months in between were pretty intense. But again, having come from a profession where you had to be organised, where you were often doing many different things at the same time, multitasking, it somehow it all got done, and as well as asking a lot of questions. But there were certainly a lot of lessons, and I shared a lot of those and my mistakes in my book, because I thought, for me, books are always about knowledge and enjoyment, and I've been an avid reader since I was a little girl. But all the books about business I was sort of reading were either by the giants of businesses, the Richard Bransons and Warren Buffetts and whatnot, or they were how-to books. And I really wanted to share exactly, not telling people what to do, but just telling people about my journey and what it was like, because there's a lot of emotions tied in with that, and there's a lot of things to adjust to, having gone from a six-figure salary to not, and having gone from stability and paycheck every fortnight in my account and super and holiday and sick leave and goodness knows what, to not having any of that. I mean, that's a huge adjustment. And even though it's going to happen, I think when the reality hits it's easy to feel very vulnerable. And I certainly did. And I had to really learn to I guess embrace that and sort of embrace the fear of not knowing what's happening. And every time I open the shoe garden, I don't know who's going to walk through the door. I don't know if it's going to be a fantastic day or if it's going to be a really slow day. That retail in particular, as well as in business, it's very up and down, and it can be quite scary to come to terms with that and to not fret about that. And again, it's you have to learn by experience sometimes, don't you? And you have to go through a few of those days and go, oh, okay, this is like it was last month. All right, well, I know this has happened before, so it's not that unusual. And how can I maybe, develop a tactic to get some more people through the door, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, every day, 6 years later, I'm still learning, and I would never, ever, ever want to not learn. And I think as we get older, the world's changing so fast. It's at a breakneck speed. And, I often hear people in business, and particularly in the shoe industry, they're quite conservative, and they're sort of saying, oh, no, I can't do that. I can't do Facebook. I don't know anything about social media. And I think, oh, gosh, you've just got to learn, because it's we can't get left behind. If you want to be successful in business and you are 40 plus or 50 like myself, then you just have to suck it up and figure it out and learn and ask someone how to do it, or employ them and to show you how to do it. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. I'm surrounded by people who not only help me but show me how to do things so that I can be empowered and do them myself. That's been a big thing that I've learned over the last 6 years.
That is a huge one. I think that idea of being open, of recognizing that we have the need to learn, and we can learn. So it's finding that spot, as you've described so perfectly, I believe, between trust and action. So we can have that vulnerability, we can have that fear, but we can't let fear take the steering wheel. We've got to trust that our intuition, the efforts that we're making are heading in the right direction, because we're not just guessing, we're not just throwing things against the dartboard and hoping something will stick. We're taking note, we're learning, we're seeing what strategies are working, what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be let go of. So it comes back to that awareness piece again, that we've just got to stay in motion. I know that, and what you were saying about the variation, like, is it going to be a good month? Is it going to be a bad month? I know, just referring to the mastermind, another one of the masterminds I'm running, one of the calls we had just a couple of weeks ago, one of the members was feeling very vulnerable because the phone wasn't ringing. You know, she was in one of those quiet times that we all have. Business does go up and down, but the reassurance and the reminder from her support circle, which is us, is that you've been here before and you've always come through it. What did we do last time? What brought you through it? What actions can you take that are positive, that keep you out of that pit of concern? Because finding that space, as we're saying, between the trust and the action, and it sounds like that's what you're talking about, and that you trust it's going to work, but you're not going to sit around and wait for it to work.
No, you really do need nerves of steel in business. And I've often thought, wow, I thought I did have, but they've certainly been improved, just in the sense of, yes, that uncertainty of not knowing when your next job's coming, if you're in a service provider industry, or when the next person's going to, step through the front door or hit buy on my online shop. But I think it all stems down to me, I think being proud of your business and what you're doing is so important, because if you believe in yourself and you believe in your business and you believe in my customers, as I do, then you're going to be fine. You're going to find ways of getting through those bad times or the slower times, and figuring it out so that they're less, or indeed just accepting that sometimes happens, and not fretting about it. That's because there's so many other things to occupy your time, rather than wasting your time on fretting about that. But it does take time to learn how to do that, for sure.
It does, and we need to embrace that fact that there are going to be learning curves, but having that trust and that faith in ourselves that we can learn, we can make these things come together. And you referred to being surrounded by people who can help you, who can assist you, that are happy to support you. What role has that played in your inverted commas success, having that community?
Well, they've been crucial. What I did at the start, my parents were actually small business owners for 30 plus years. So I kind of thought I knew what it was all about, having heard about them talking about the business over the breakfast table since I was a little kid. The reality was that not until you're in business does it really sink home what it is, in fact, really all about. But I was very fortunate that they were also here in Brisbane, and I was able to approach a lot of the people who assisted them. So the bank manager, the accountant, the web people I used in my have used for the last 16 years through my previous career. I was able to approach these people. They knew about what I had done. I wanted them and invited them to be part of the journey. And, the majority of them are still with me now, six years later, because I guess that's one of the scary things when you start out is how to build this tribe of people around you. And I was very lucky to have almost a tribe completely around me straight away, thanks to my parents' business contacts. And then I guess as you go, you learn to identify people who you enjoy dealing with and who are like-minded, who share the same values. I think that's really important as well.
Absolutely.
That's why, a lot of my suppliers, for example, have made donations to the charity and come along to my events because they're like-minded people and I enjoy working with them and they with me. So it does make a big difference. And I've always wanted to largely be a one-woman show. I have casual staff, two of which ironically used to work for me in my other life. So that's fantastic. Lucky for me, they both have longer feet. So that was great that they could come on board on a casual basis and help me. But I always knew that I just wanted to be front and centre. So having this support group around me, and that also includes a personal support group as well. It's fabulous to have the professionals around you. But my parents, my family, without question, without exception, they've been amazing. Given I've made this, rather unexpected left field turn in my life and in my career, when I did, they've all been exceptionally fabulous and supportive. So that's really important as well. And those that perhaps haven't so much or who haven't understood so much, again, it's, I guess, part of getting older as well. You do tend to walk away from a few people or to just go, you know what, I need to be surrounded by people who are positive and who believe in me and believe in my journey, because that helps you as well, doesn't it? If you've got that, it just reinforces your own belief in what you're doing.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most essential ingredients for our journey. We need to be surrounded, as you said, by the like-minded people, the people, I think, who was it? Steve Jobs from Apple talked about, surround yourself by the dreamers, the crazy ones, the ones who think it can happen. Because I am a huge proponent in self-confidence and positivity are your number one business strategies. Because we've all heard the expression, if you believe you can, you're halfway there. Well, I think the other half can also be contributed by our support circle as well. If they believe we can as well, we don't need the approval. There's a difference here that I'm making. But
absolutely.
But having the support, it's good to fall back on it when you're feeling a bit wobbly. And goodness knows, we all have wobbly days.
Oh yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Luckily, they're getting less, but they're still there, and they keep you grounded and they keep it real, don't they? You often learn, as always, you learn more from those days and those experiences than you do from all the good times. So they're necessary, but yes, I'm appreciating that they're getting fewer.
I often say that we teach from the trenches. I mean, that's where we learn our lessons, and so we can rise up and teach from there. Carol, this has been one of those wonderful conversations that is so alive with possibility that someone can take such a complete turn and go into a completely new direction. But there was definite strands there of skills that you had from your previous chapters that could then be corralled and implemented and utilized in this chapter. So I think it's important for us to recognize that, yes, we can go in new directions, but you're not starting completely from scratch. You had a lot of skills there that were transferable once you had owned the value of those skills and started using them again. I think that's a really reassuring thing for anyone that's standing on the edge of, shall I leap? Shall I leap?
That's right. Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself.
I must be tuning into your thoughts. So just imagine a woman who's listening right now and who has that, she can feel that sort of bubbling in her heart, like, if that's possible for Carol, maybe it's possible. What I'm thinking is possible for me. What would you say to her? How would you encourage her? Yeah. Believe
in yourself and do it. There's got to be a reason for whatever it is that you're doing. If this person has perhaps identified a niche like I have, and if they're certain about it, if they think, yep, this is it, put all your energy into it, put all your belief into it, be positive about it, surround yourself by positive people, be proud of doing it, and be open to learning. Run out, buy every book you can about whatever it is that you're getting into, talk to people, learn from people, and do it daily. And really, I don't see how they can't succeed, because that's being open to all of that, I think, is integral to the business journey. And there's so many amazing businesses out there that start like you did on a dining room table, or like I did crying on a sofa, wondering what to do with my life at 44. If you've got that purpose behind you, I think when it's right, and so many things happened after I made my decision where I just kept going, oh gosh, yes, there's another thing that worked out. It's meant to be. And if you keep getting those meant to be moments, keep going, because you're on the right path.
And absolutely, it is a path, it is a journey. Those are words that are important for us to stress, because it doesn't all fall into place immediately. And just because things are challenging or tricky, or you don't know how to do them yet, doesn't mean that you'll never know how to do them and that they won't ever fall into place. It's that tenacity and that perseverance, which is why I think being aligned with the purpose and the meaning of your business and something that feels really right to you is so important, because then those tricky, challenging parts are easier, not easy, but easier to negotiate our way through and to navigate through, because we are connected to purpose, and that really makes a difference.
Totally does. And this suddenly, I think when you start your own business too, the professional becomes personal, and that has its it has its downside, but it also has its upside, because you get to create an entity. You get to create exactly what you want. You don't have to listen to everyone else. You don't have to compromise. That's what I found incredibly exciting. I'd never outfitted a shop before, but I made it up. I did it myself. I love it. I love the beautiful environment that I've created. Every step along the way, having not done something is no excuse for not doing it, and learning how to do it. And I think it's kind of nice sometimes not knowing everything, because you are not doing things as what people expect you to do. And I'm constantly told that by suppliers. They're just going, really, Carol? I never thought of it like that, or I never thought of doing it that way. But I think that's quite precious. So if you actually don't know too much about what you're going into, it can be to your advantage as well, because for you, you're fresh-eyed, you're open to all ideas, and you're not going to be, pigeonholed, and you're not going to be pressured into going a particular way, because you actually know no better. You'll go your own way, and I think sometimes that's the best way.
It's the joy of discovery in our next chapters. Absolutely. Well, Carol, thank you so much. This has been, as I said, one of those delightfully wholehearted conversations that I have no doubt could be the catalyst for somebody else stepping into a new possibility as well, which is what these conversations are all about. So let's say that our listener wants to find you. Obviously, we can go to the Shoe Garden, or is there a that? No, it's shoegarden.com.au. But what about the book? Because you're absolutely right. I've found that many women who are in my community, in my world, are huge book readers. We eat them for breakfast, hence the name. Your next chapter actually has a double meaning to it. We seem to love our books and our stationery, and now I think we can add shoes to that as well. So where can we find you and the book? What's the best way to connect with you past the online store?
Well, if you actually go to shoegarden.com.au, there's a whole section about giving back, so you can meet some of the amazing women that I give back to. But there's a section also about the book, and you're able to order the book. I self-published because I wanted to do it in my own way. I didn't want to compromise. It might sound familiar. Didn't want to compromise on anything about the book itself. So I sell it in my shop and online, and it's also available on Amazon and all the ebook retailers as well. But it's my personal journey, which I really enjoyed writing. It was actually very, very cathartic to write it. It was almost written in real time at the tail end of describing my first 4 years in business. And the feedback that I've been getting is that people have been surprised about how honest I've been. But I did want to share, the darker times as well. I actually opened the book with the first few words of me crying as I'm running one morning, because it just so much had been happening with the shop, and the business had been slow. And I think being honest is so precious, and that's what I wanted to share with women. So I would love them to go online at shoegarden.com.au to have a look at my book. I've also got a Facebook page for the book. So facebook.com and then /InMyShoes the book, and every day I'm on there just sort of sharing. I'm continuing to write my book basically every day on my Facebook page, just giving updates on what's been happening in my world of business, and trying to share my love for being in small business, but also for being small and for giving back.
That's wonderful. I'll make sure that those links are on the podcast page as well, so everyone can find and connect from there. I'm really looking forward to reading the book too.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It has been wonderful. I really appreciate you opening up and sharing so honestly, because to me, that's a core value. One of my core values is kindness. Another one is honesty two are honesty and transparency. We need to talk about the good and the bad. That's, and everything in between, because that's life. I mean, we've got a multifaceted experience. And so there's no point just being Pollyanna. We can be optimistic, but we also need to be honest and open about what happens, the trials and the tribulations as well. So I really appreciate the way that you've showed up on the call today.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I think you summed up a lot of my feelings exceptionally well. So thank you.
You're so welcome. And you, my lovely listener, thank you so much for spending your time here listening to another episode of the podcast. I really do hope that my goal for you, which is to take possibility and inspiration from these stories that we're sharing, does allow you to step more into purpose, to step more into your own passions, to reinvent yourself in small or in large ways, because that's all open and possible for you in your next chapter. So again, thank you for investing your time and your energy. And remember that with this particular series, there is a resource I've created to help you perhaps dig down a little more deeply into what purpose looks and feels like to you. So if you simply go to angelaraspas.com/purpose, you'll be able to download that wee workbook and just answer some of those questions. They're intended as catalysts to start you on this realigning with what's most important to you, because meaning and mission and contribution is so important to us in our next chapter. So I'd love you to spend some time uncovering what that looks like for you. So until next time and until the next episode, take care, and I'll speak with you again very soon. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelaraspas.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.